responsible? They are. The NGO view, which Seva Mandir to some extent shared, was the opposite, which is that the government is responsible. The government does, always absent, and therefore you can't get immunized, and because you can't get immunized, you don't get immunized. So it was very simple. The two theories, both very powerfully held. One came out of a kind of an anthropological understanding of maybe as you'll see, possibly a false anthropological understanding of the lives of these people. Another came from very much a kind of a governance point of view, and that was, so between them, the one thing they agreed upon is that right now there's nothing to do. Till we change the system wholesale, there was nothing to do. Again, I think one thing that RCTs do is allow you to say, okay, fine, so is there absolutely nothing we can do? And there I feel that the collaboration with Seva Mandir was extraordinarily helpful, because they said, look, fine, why don't we believe there's a government's failure, we'll demonstrate it. So what we're going to do is we're going to organize a camp in every village every month, and we're going to do it, we're going to pre-announce it. It'll be on Wednesday, the third Wednesday or the fourth Sunday, and on that day we will do it. The government was actually perfectly happy for Seva Mandir to do it. They had to, we set up some protocols for maintaining the cold chain so that the immunization, the vaccines don't get overheated or something. So there was some procedure that was set up, but with that, the government was perfectly happy to help us, or help Seva Mandir. So Seva Mandir was going to create these camps in every village. And then, since basically because we were friends with Seva Mandir, we managed to persuade them that, look, why not try something else? Why not offer these families who get their children immunized a small token gift every time the children get immunized? What was the gift we chose? We chose a kilo of dal. So every time they get their child immunized, they get a kilo of dal. And we discussed this with the government and with lots of experts in the area, actually, lots of experts who volunteered their opinion, and they all said this is going to do nothing. So if you believe that the problem is delivery, then once Seva Mandir delivers, everybody's going to get immunized. If you believe that people have strong, deep beliefs which are against immunization, then I'm going to be a kilo of dal. So nobody's going to be affected by it. So we all were told the answer. Fortunately, by then we had we learned the basic lesson, which is that we know nothing, and we can just watch, or we know too little to have such strong opinions. So we waited. About a year later, what do we find? We find that, well, the full immunization rate, so this is a randomized control trial. There was one set of villages where no one, we did nothing new. The government system continued. In a set of villages where the Seva Mandir organized these camps, but that's it. And some villages where they organized a camp and this kilo of dal was offered. So if you see what happened, in the villages nothing done, 6% of the kids were fully immunized. In the villages where the Seva Mandir was ensuring full delivery, and they did that very, very reliably, because we measured that. They did it 95% of the time. The person was there, and when it was not there, it was pre-announced that they wouldn't be there because there's a religious occasion or something. So they were reliable, and that it went up to 17%. When you give them a kilo of dal, that went up to 37%. So that's an increase of 6 times the immunization rate, from 6% to 37%. And that's sort of, again, immunization saved lives. This was saving a bunch of lives. Why did it work? So in retrospect, we can discuss why it worked. And at that point, I think the first reaction was, this can't be true. Why are these people reacting to this kilo of dal? I think now we know a bit more about how, I think, people actually think about these things. One thing that was actually staring at all of us in the face, which should have told us that something like this will happen, is that, in fact, the immunization rates for the first shot were over 85%. And then by the time it was the last shot, it went down to 2 or 5%. So it was not the case that these families had deep opposition to these things. They were just not able to, by the time the child is 2 years old, you have another child along the way, you forget. So there was a lot of this. What the dal did was it made this occasion memorable. Okay, let's go get the dal, and we'll get the child immunized. So it was simply the fact, and in some ways that particular thought has now become a very important influence on the way economists think about the world. We have now learned that people actually forget, people are inattentive, and grabbing people's attention is a very important part of getting good outcomes to happen. And that sort of general conclusion is the kind of conclusion we would have never learned if we started from sort of these kind of broad theories that have and get stuck in the debate between them. And one liberating piece of what RCTs contribute is that they make us able to say, look, what's the cost? We'll just try something else. If it works, we'll learn something. If it doesn't, too bad. And I think that mindset of being exploratory is extremely powerful. Let me give you one last example. Is that okay? You have time for one more example? One last example and then stop. And this example is related to the previous one, and then I'll say a little bit about education to end. So in this process of working on immunization, one thing we learned is that it's very important to kind of get the parents reminded that that they need to bring the child to get immunized. So, and the question is, how do you do something like that? How do you, in a world where there are India has 600,000 villages, how do you get the message to individual parents that on a certain day they need to do something? So that's a general question. There's a general question of how to embed information inside a system. How do you, if you have a piece of information you want to convey to people, how do you spread that word? How do you spread the word? How do you get messages transmitted through, if you like, the social network of a village or a community? So that's a question that's, of course, in some sense, Facebook would also like to know the answer to that question. We thought about this question in the context we are used to, which is the context of villages. Well, in this particular case, villages in India. We started by studying something innocuous, not vaccination, but I'll come back to vaccination in a minute, which was, how do you get a message of something innocuous, a raffle for a telephone? How do you, it's a marketing question. How do you get that to people? What's a cheap way to do it? And if you go down economics actually study social networks, and there's a way to think about it within this world of social network theory. And the answer is that you should find the people who are central to the network and pass the message to them. Now, how do you find the people who are central to the network? Well, you ask everybody, who's your friend, and then you map out who's your relative, who's somebody you work with, and you map out the entire social network. And once you mapped it out, you can see who's connected to many people, who's connected to many people who are connected to many people. That's sort of the idea of centrality, people connected to people who are connected to many people. So how do you find those people? Well, you map the network, then you look in the network. Now that turns out to be a pain, because the network is first, it takes a lot of resources, you have to ask people a lot of questions, and second, even when you do it, the network changes pretty fast, so it's hard to know. So that was a bit of the frustration. We had done that exercise and shown that does work. If you find the central people, the message does get spread. So we were still looking for an answer, and it occurred to us that maybe we should just forget about all this theory and start again on the ground, ask a question. Ask a question which is kind of very mundane, which is go to the villages and ask, suppose you wanted to spread a story in the village, who would you tell? In other words, who's the village gossip? So we asked people basically this question, and it turns out Everybody knows who the village gossip is. The answer was always X, 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 X. Only mostly only 4% of the village got named. So often 2 people per village were picked. Everybody knew their names. Everybody said the same people. In other words, everybody knew who the gossips were. We ran an experiment where we compared the gossips with all the other possibilities. We took the influential people, random people, trusted people. We ran different experiments where we're comparing them with these different possible messengers. And when we do that, so in some villages we inform their gossip, some other villages we inform, leaders, trusted people, random people. When you do that, the striking conclusion is that if you inform the gossips, you get the message to 3 times as many people. Gossips are really extremely powerful. Now, this is something that we would not have come by if we had been thinking about it as a part of some elaborate kind of formal theory, but it's a very natural idea. It's an idea that, if you think about it, if you want to spread a message, you often tell somebody who has a loose tongue. And now, why do I say it's connected to immunization? Well, then we did a study of immunization, where, again, the question was, how do you get parents reminded of taking the children to the camp? And again, we chose to find the gossips and plant the message with them. And when you do that, twice as many children get immunized. So it's extraordinarily powerful, and it's an idea that's so incredibly simple, and yet it lives kind of outside the realm of formal models. It's not an idea that it lives naturally inside these conversations about, social networks or other communication channels. So I guess what I want to illustrate by this one is that it's almost a word that didn't exist in the vocabulary. The word gossip doesn't exist in the vocabulary of economics, yet it was obviously the most powerful way to get this job done. And I think that's one of the ways in which, I would say, RCTs are liberating. They make you think about things that don't necessarily derive from some grand structure. If you have a strong intuition, you think about the social context, and you're allowed to take that into what you're doing and see if it works. If it doesn't work, not much lost. If it works, you learn something very, very new and different. And that I think has been the real power of our cities, is that it's sort of made us ask questions that we didn't really think of asking. That not to say that the theories are irrelevant. The theories are extraordinarily important in disciplining the way we learn. So when you so I'll come back to the education example to illustrate that. So the first thing we learned, as I told you, is you double the class size, you don't get anything for it. You add textbooks, you don't get anything for it. So when we see that, we're refining our theories. We're trying to think of what could be a reason why this doesn't work. And then we found one thing that did work. And that was basically, again, instead of cutting the class size in half, it was taking some children out of the classroom and having them be coached by in this particular case, a girl who had a high school education, maybe a teenage girl. She was helping them catch up. So these were the kids. And the way it was done was that the kids who were not able to read or unable to do even the most basic arithmetic were taken out and given to this girl for a couple of hours a day and then brought back to school again, to the classroom again. And this intervention, which was invented by Pratham, the great educational NGO, we evaluated through our cities in Bombay and Baroda, and it worked. It made the kids learned enormously more, as it turned out. And then we continued pursuing that. And one of the things that then we knew that, well, somehow dividing the class works, but having these kids targeting what they don't know and then teaching them what they don't know. So halving the class doesn't work, but teaching what they don't know does work. And they're both different ways of dividing the class, so why does one work and the other doesn't? So again, we're building a theory, and the theory, and eventually I think we understood why exactly it doesn't work. And there was a series of RCTs, maybe 7 or 8 RCTs. I'll tell you about one more that was very telling. There was a pair of RCTs. One of them, this way of sort of separating the class and teaching the people who don't know how to, particular skill, teaching them that skill is something we now call teaching at the right level. This was taught, this methodology for this was taught to the teachers. The teachers were also given sort of all the material, and then we see what happens. What happens? Nothing. The teachers don't manage to have any impact. Then the next thing we did, this was in Bihar, we did the same thing with teachers again, but this time in the summer when the teachers were off duty. So they were paid, and they were teaching in the summer. And in the summer when they do it, they have huge effects. So why does it work in the summer but not in the year? Is it the weather? No, I think the answer is that the teachers are very much in the grip of the curriculum. So they feel, and we talk to them, and we have qualitative studies saying that the teachers say, look, we're not going to do all this fancy stuff. We have to complete the curriculum. So now, if you have to complete the curriculum and you have a classroom full of kids who really can't read, what do? You focus on the top 3 kids who can actually read. You focus your math on the top 3 kids who can do the basic mathematics. So you keep focusing on them. So it doesn't matter if you cut the class in half, quarter, etc. It's only the top few people who matter. So you teach those people. The teaching is only to the top. The rest are not. Are sort of seen as being, they're hopeless because they are behind. So once you have that, then of course textbooks don't help because the textbooks are too hard because the kids have not been brought up to their level. So you get all this. So the theory actually comes out of the experiments. Eventually through the experiments we learned what the right theory was. And the advantage of that is that when you learn the theory from the experiments, you already have confirmation that it's not you get the right theory and you get the right policy solution. And now this policy solution is being implemented across many countries. It owes a lot to Pratham again. They're the ones who I think saw this insight. Just have to treat kids as kids and not as he's in 5th grade. He cannot read, but he's obliged to read. Therefore, we're going to teach them history. That for obvious reason doesn't work, but it wasn't obvious to people again till they did it. So to conclude, let me say that, so what's exciting to me about this journey has been, in a sense, it's been an exercise in humility. I think I've been wrong many, many times, and so right sometimes. It doesn't really hurt to be wrong. Being wrong is just the first step in learning. And it's a lot more, it's not symmetrical. When you write, you get something that actually then has an impact on the world. The malaria bed nets saved many children's lives. The immunization will also save many children's lives. So when you have the right answer, it saves lives. When you don't, you just were wrong. I think that's a more general message perhaps for all academics, that I think being so willing to go with your hunches, be wrong, try again, and eventually we'll find something that's exciting, important, true. Thank you very much.
This convocation will award special medals, awards, and prizes to eminent personalities in recognition of their achievements in their respective fields. May I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor Madam to honor the awardees.
The awardees are Ashutosh Mukherjee Memorial Medal,
কোচবিহার, হলদিয়া থেকে হিঙ্গলগঞ্জ, পাহাড় হয়ে সমতল, কোথাও সমুদ্রের হাতছানি, কোথাও নির্জন বনভূমি। বাংলার রাজনীতি, সংস্কৃতি, ইতিহাস, উৎসব, আনন্দের কোলাজ। আমি মিঠু নিয়ে আসছি বাংলার আয়না, সোম থেকে শুক্র ঠিক সন্ধে 7টায়, শুধুমাত্র বাংলা ভারতে।
যে বাংলা ভারতের কথা বলে।
কলকাতা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় সমাবর্তনে ধুন্ধুমার, পড়ুয়াদের বিক্ষোভের মুখে রাজ্যপাল। জগদীপ ধনখড়ের গাড়ি ঘিরে বিক্ষোভ, কালো পতাকা, গো ব্যাক স্লোগান, ঢুকতে না পেরে ফিরলেন রাজ্যপাল। কলকাতা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় সমাবর্তন অনুষ্ঠানে নোবেল জয়ী অর্থনীতিবিদ অভিজিৎ বিনায়ক বন্দ্যোপাধ্যায় নজরুল মঞ্চের নোবেল জয়ীকে ডিলিট প্রদান।